You know what hurts? Not like stepping on a Lego pane, but that deep existential, this could have been glorious kind of hurt. Apparently, Microsoft recently passed up on secret level crossovers that could have thrown Halo, Infinite's Master Chief, and Doomslayer into the same animated arena. Yeah, they had a chance to let two of the gaming's most iconic armored juggernauts go toe-to-toe, fight side by side, depending on how much chaos they wanted, and they said, nah, we're good. If you haven't seen it, Secret Level's the animated anthology series. It feels like somebody cracked open a treasure chest of video game nostalgia and dumped the contents right into my eyeballs. Even somehow made Concord interesting. The series hit Amazon Prime in December 2024, and it's basically a love letter to every gamer and anime fan, with crossovers of all kinds. Tim Miller, the guy who did Deadpool, and Blur Studio crafted this thing, and it's packed with 15 standalone episodes, each diving headfirst into a different game universe. Imagine Love, Death, and Robots, but instead of existential dread and trippy future tech, you get pixelated glory, reimagined in slick 3D animation, and then that existential dread and demonic Pac-Man future tech added back on top in some of the episodes. Now, some of these episodes are incredible. You have Dungeons and Dragons, The Queen's Cradle. This one kicks down the door like Conan the Barbarian at a tavern and is trying to celebrate D&D's 50th anniversary. It's got adventures, dark magic, and enough heart to make you briefly wonder if you're not in the middle of a tabletop campaign with your friends. Speaking of Arnold, you actually have him in an episode. He's voicing an exiled king who can't fight for shit, trying to consistently get the current king's crown, and like a roguelike, he keeps dying and retrying and dying again on his way to the top. Then, of course, there is the excellent Warhammer 40,000 and They Shall Know No Fear, which sounds like something you'd whisper to your friends before flipping the lights off in a basement. It's dark, it's nasty, it's everything Warhammer. Follows a space marine who's the galactic version of the Terminator, but with more skulls and guilt. And the same guy who made that sweet fan-made Space Marine episode we got years ago, he got to work on it. And the Pac-Man one, I just want to mention that as well. I don't know where they came up with this, but it's the creepiest Pac-Man moment ever. Somebody basically said, hey, you know what's missing in Pac-Man? Lore. But they added it. Not every episode's flawless. Some are more or less. There's a couple that are like button mashing and hoping for the best, but even the weak ones feel like they were made by people who actually get the games they're adapting, and that's rare. Secret Level just didn't cash in on nostalgia. It made you feel like you're a kid again back in Saturday mornings where you were eating sugary cereal, having a glucose check, and then hours of gaming before your parents woke up. But one group who wasn't a part of this was Microsoft. Collider this morning dropped the news in an interview with Tim Miller and Dave Wilson, the guys again behind the animated series. And man, they did try. Wilson even spent his entire weekend crafting what I can only imagine was the nerdiest, most heartfelt love letter to Microsoft about how much he adored both franchises since childhood and wanted to merge them. Microsoft, though, on the other hand, they pulled the equivalent of basically crossing their arms and shaking their heads. Miller summed it up with Microsoft basically just saying, nah.
It's a lot of trust for the IP holder, the game companies, to say, yeah, we'll let you take our prized possessions and run around in the street with them. You know, we did the best we could. And we wanted that we liked.
I would like the big one that I like. Creative director at id is a good friend of ours, and and so is folks at Microsoft. So we made a big plea, because one of the things both Tim and I would love to do is do something that isn't currently available in the games, like crossovers. Like we wanted to make a Master Chief Doomslayer like crossover episode, and it like I spent a whole weekend crafting this impassioned letter of my childhood, and it's exactly what Tim said. They were like, no,
and of course we begged for Half-Life, and of course we, that.
And honestly, I sort of get it. Letting your intellectual property run wild in someone else's playground can feel a bit like handing the keys to your vintage muscle car over to a stranger who says, don't worry, I swear I'm just going to do one burnout. Still, Master Chief and Doomslayer together, imagine the carnage, the one-liners, the sheer weight of the helmets alone would break the internet. And here we are, left wondering about what could have been, like staring at that last slice of pizza you swore you'd save only to have somebody else eat the goddamn thing and then spend the next hour telling you it really wasn't that good. As I said, there's still a second season coming, and Miller and Wilson are trying to dive into other game universes. But this crossover would have been something to the level of the Expendables for video game lore, testosterone-fueled awesomeness. I guess we'll have to stick to sort of imagining it in our heads unless Microsoft comes around to it. In mine, Master Chief is punching demons across the room and Slayer nodding in respect as he takes out an elite. Just think of what could have been, though. Imagine, like, let's say the flood moment in Halo 1. Master Chief, seeing the troops dead in this massive room, grabs the chip from one of the soldiers to find out what happened. But instead of the flood, a flood of demons come out in a flood. Then they begin to fight, nodding as they kill each other's enemies, switch weapons, nodding to one another again just because that's cool. Then at the end, Demon Slayer tears a hunter in half with his bare hands, and Master Chief casually throws a sticky bomb onto a floating demon as it wobbles away, stunned, to blow up all of his pals. Instead, we got, hindsight's 2020, but if you do use hindsight, you see the giant space turd known as the Halo TV show, which is a random assault charge that just keeps coming back to haunt you every time you apply for a new job. Its claim to fame is pretty much that the main people working on it were proud to have not seen much of Halo. That's just what I want. The dude who never worked on an oil rig to be the one in charge of building the fucking thing. We do have Forward Until Dawn, which I actually thought was pretty goddamn good, especially compared to the show, but most things are. I mean, almost all things are. It should be noted also that they instantly stated that it wasn't just Halo, but also Half-Life that they begged for and didn't get. So be aware of that. Whatever. In the long run, this is another line of one of those weird decisions that you look at it a couple years from now and you look back and you're like, that's a huge missed opportunity. But it doesn't mean that they can't turn it around during these next seasons. We'll just have to see. I really enjoyed my time with Secret Level. If you guys haven't got a chance to see it, I think you'll absolutely dig it. It was a very enjoyable show, something I was not expecting. Love, Death, and Robots. There was a lot of really good episodes there too. And the idea of taking the crossovers and different games and merging them together is something that we won't usually see in a game environment because of the cost of putting together a game, how much time that is. But here, when it comes to cartoons, when it comes to animation, those kind of things can happen more often. And I'm looking forward to a lot of other ideas. And I'm certainly looking forward to somebody taking something like Pac-Man and thinking, yeah, let's make this look like demonic lore babies, which turned out to actually be pretty goddamn cool. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your week.